Welcome to a deep dive conversation into Tears of the Kingdom. So what does that mean? That means spoilers ahead. So please be prepared. Please be warned. If you haven't beaten the game already, please leave, go beat it, and then come back. And let's, talk about this amazing game. Here with me today, I have Nintendo Memories.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josie, for having me on today. I cannot wait to talk about this masterpiece of a game. It feels like, it's crazy how we've been waiting all the way since 2019 when this game was announced, and we've been waiting, and finally it's here and we get to experience. And you and I have both finally beat it, and I'm just excited to just talk about it today. Just everything that we've experienced from the story to gameplay and everything.
Yeah, I'm so, because I feel like a lot of people were dancing around it, because we don't know who's completed, we don't know who's not, and so we don't want to spoil it, but a spoiler discussion is perfect just to get everything out there and to fully, go in depth on this game, because even, I make a review of this game, I don't want to spoil the whole thing for people that haven't even experienced it yet, but yeah, so the first thing we're going to dive into is just our favorite part of the game, just as a whole. So what would you say?
So first and foremost, I got to get this out of the way. The game's opening is probably one of the coolest openings I've ever seen in a Zelda game, period. I mean, right off the bat, the game wastes no time getting players into the action. You see Ganondorf wake up. Yeah. You see mass chaos across the world of Hyrule. And then you see a beautiful, skydiving thing as Link is skydiving down onto the Great Sky Island, and the logo appears and the music and everything. It was just the game's opening gives me chills every single time, which also, for the first time in the series, we see Ganondorf speak. And that was you see Link and Zelda come upon his dead corpse, and then he comes alive and all that. That was so cool to experience. For the first time, I had chills all the way.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
I loved the beginning as well. I thought that was just amazing because so it gave me a lot of false hope, though. I did think that, maybe Zelda's playable because she's so close to us here, it gave me a lot of false hope, but I did think it was a really, really amazing beginning, and it was very suspenseful because you go into it and you're like, I know that I'm not going to start this new Zelda game with full hearts. Something crazy is going to happen, but you don't know what it is, and that suspense is super fun. And I think it's always great when a game like Zelda it's always had decent story, but it's not ever really been the main focus, and that's just not how Nintendo operates, right? And so I think it was so cool that they used all these elements of story that are just never really done in a Nintendo game. So I love that as well. But I think my favorite part of the game was just how creative you could be and how you can tackle this in any way. It's even more so than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was similar in that way, but even you and I, we probably had such different experiences with this game. You probably did way different side quests than I did, or you did different shrines, different temples in different ways, or different. None of it's wrong, and it's all however you want to play the game. If you want to cheat the game, you're allowed to cheat the game. If you want to do everything by the book, perfect, exactly how Nintendo probably wants you to do it, you can always do that. But I just loved how freeing it was. If you don't want to traverse the world on your horse, you can make a big old truck and traverse it like Lightning McQueen. You can really do whatever you want, and I think it's really, really amazing. So that was definitely my favorite part of the game as a whole. What would you say is the coolest part of the open world?
The open world this time, honestly, is the thing that Nintendo kept secret this entire time. We've seen in the trailers constantly, every trailer they released, Sky, base overworld. Sky, base overworld. The depths were kept a complete secret this entire time, and I don't know how Nintendo did it. They kept that whole complete pretty much a second Hyrule secret from us, because whenever you finally are able to get the paraglider and you're able to go down those chasms and you get down into the depths for the first time, I opened my map and I was like, okay, let's just see how much of this is going to be explorable. And it's a completely separate map all by itself, just as big as the base overworld in the game. And I was just like, wow, this game literally is twice the size of Breath of the Wild, and there's got to be some crazy stuff hidden down here. And so I remember spending just certain play sessions that I would just sit down and play the game completely. I would not go back into the base Hyrule. I would just spend just one play session completely in the depths, because it was just all brand new and so many things to find, so many things to explore, a lot harder enemies to fight down there too.
Definitely.
So yeah, absolutely. And also, yes, the skies as well. I really enjoyed exploring the skies and crafting. I will say I give all kudos to those who are able to craft crazy types of machines and things like
Yeah.
that. I just built myself small little planes and just flew
Yeah.
around from island to sky island, but still that was so much fun to like go into. It just gave me such Skyward Sword vibes because I'm a huge fan of Skyward Sword, and being able to like traverse back into the sky and then go back down to the surface and finally seeing what Aonuma and his team wanted to do back with Skyward Sword and fully realized here with Tears of the Kingdom was so cool to actually be able to see the seamlessness through all of it. It was just, yeah, really cool.
Yeah. I also absolutely love the depths and the sky worlds. I think which is rare, I think I had more fun with the sky worlds than I did with the depths, because I always loved the excursion of getting there. Because unless you fast travel, which you can, but like trying to get to a new sky island is a trek. Like there are so many different things you can do. There are so many different things that you kind of have to do in order to get yourself all the way up there, and it gets pretty insane. I remember one time I rode on a dragon, and then at that exact same time there was one of those sky brick things that just falls from the sky, and I caught it as it was falling down with rewind, jumped on it, and it took me up to the sky island. And I was like, that's such an insane sentence to say in like Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I jumped off the back of a dragon onto a floating sky toilet, and then I got up to the top. Like, that's not a thing that...
But you can do it.
Yeah.
That's how, I mean, literally what they've been saying is take on the... Because I've always wondered what they meant by it in the beginning, because this is back when they were being so tight-lipped about everything. You know, Aonuma was constantly saying, take on the threat of Hyrule the way your imagination deems fit. And I'm like, okay, what exactly does that mean,
Yeah.
the way my imagination deems fit? Like, if you imagine it, you can probably do it in this game. That's really the motto of this game. Just try it and just see what happens. And
Yeah.
You'll be amazed by some of the things that you can do.
Yeah, and the amount of...
crafting.
The way that you can completely cheese whole shrines that are all built around all these crazy physics, and you can just strap a rocket to your shield and soar above the whole thing. It's like... It's so awesome, though, because regardless, the game is... It rewards you either way, you know, whatever way you want to play it. That goes back to why it's like, that's my favorite part of the game. And the sky worlds, I think, are really fun. I loved the introductory, like, world. I thought that was an amazing place to show us what this game is all about, what you're going to be doing, introduce us to all of the abilities, to the new shrines, to the ways to get around and everything. And I absolutely loved the sky worlds. I thought they were really beautiful too. Like, it's just a really pretty, it's like all this fall aesthetic. It's just really, really nice looking. And, you know, it's a shame because it doesn't run amazing on the Switch, because the Switch is such old hardware, but still it runs pretty dang good. So yeah.
Yes. And I'll say this, you know, for the fact that this thing can load a sky world, a base Hyrule, and a completely separate world underneath all of that and run it smoothly, props to Nintendo for figuring out how to do that, because that's on 6-year-old hardware, you know.
Not easy.
So yeah, it can, like, I was like, yeah, Breath of the Wild could never. Like I remember when they ported Breath of the Wild from Wii U to Switch, and I was like, yeah, the Wii U could never do this. There's no way they could do this.
No.
But yeah, the sky worlds, like you said, Josie, so beautiful. Like I remember getting a bunch of like all those little gumball looking machines,
Yeah.
where you would throw in your Zonite and get a bunch of little Zonite parts to build your machines and contraptions. I wanted to see exactly how high you could travel in the skies. And there was one point where I built like a hot air balloon type thing, and I had enough resources to literally go as high as you can possibly go in Hyrule.
Oh my god.
And it is a sight to see whenever you get all the way to the top. It will get to a point where it says you can't go any further whenever you get as high as you can possibly go, but it is a beautiful sight to behold whenever you get up there.
That is insane.
So cool. I pressed the screenshot button so many times on my Switch.
Yeah.
That when I got it, I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, it shows how resourceful, I guess Nintendo is. I mean, they made this game fully optimized for the Switch in every way, and to push the console to its absolute max. No loading screens. You can go all the way from the tippy top like you were, all the way down to the bottom with the depths, and it's just absolutely seamless. And it's super pretty the whole way through. It puts Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to sort of shame, but that's okay.
Yeah, and this just goes to show, and I heard this, shout out to Beat 'em Ups, Wood, if you see this. He made a comment on one of his own podcasts that I was listening to. He talked about how Nintendo takes their absolute as much time as possible to refine their games and make sure they are ready by release. And, you know, you have Nintendo out here taking 5 to 6 years on a Zelda game, and it sells 10 million in 3 days.
Right.
Whereas you have other companies rushing things out, and like this game, as he was talking about, should be a wake up call. Yeah, it should be a wake up call to game developers, and like take your time with your projects so that you can have it be a masterpiece and gamers can have a good time with it. That way it's not a buggy mess when it finally releases.
Yeah.
You know? And so.
Yeah, I think Nintendo really hit it out of the park with this one. It was just absolutely an amazing game from top to bottom in every way. And the depths were, of course, I didn't really touch on the depths super well, but the depths were great. I think they're super fun, and I love the late game with the depths is awesome. You know, and we're in spoiler territory, so when you're getting that last champion down there, it is the coolest thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because really and truly, that when you're getting the last like sage champion down there, like the spirit temple and that whole quest to get down there is so much fun, but also very challenging.
Yes.
I died a lot during that quest, because also, I don't think we touched on this, the hearts that you lose in the depths, you cannot get back unless you go to one of the light routes, go back to the overworld, or you cook something that allows you to restore those hearts. But yeah, it's you know, I died a lot during that part, but it was so much fun being able to build that machine and that boss fight was fun.
That boss fight was crazy. So you said it a little bit, how you can cook that plant to make, you know, your hearts restore. I had no clue you could do that until I was in the last Ganon fight, and I had 2 hearts because the other ones were all gone, and I was so confused. And then my friend was like, just cook the root. And then I was like, no way. Like, I went the entire game without knowing that you could do that. It was pretty crazy. It was a crazy realization at the end there.
Me too.
Really?
But lucky for you, you found out right at the very end. I fought Ganon without all that. It was
my god.
Insane. So I was on my toes the entire time. I was just like, okay, I gotta learn his attack patterns and all these things, and you know, it was insane. So yeah, I fought Ganon without all of that. So that was insanely difficult.
Cow.
But yeah, I didn't realize that until after the game was over. I was like, you can cook these things.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, there's no way.
Like I could have used that
for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Many times while I was in the depths, I could have used this.
Yeah. Before we dive too much into Ganon, let's talk about what some of your favorite side quests were from the overworld, or just like in general.
Okay. So these aren't like super big quests, but my favorite quests by far, favorite side quests by far, are the ones where you seek out the soldiers across Hyrule and you help them defend their territories. For one, it just takes me straight back to Hyrule Warriors, because I was such a huge fan of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Loved that game. And the fact that they were bringing some of that vibe into Tears of the Kingdom, and you got to go and help them defend certain parts of Hyrule, and then they move to different locations, and then the reward for it is not that great. I mean, it's just like 100 rubies or something, but still, like, being able to do it was so...
The economy in Tears of the Kingdom is so broken that those 100 rubies make a lot. They do a lot.
That's right. That's very true. Yeah. I mean, you know, but that whole quest, every single one of those quests, loved those. Absolutely adored those. And also, as someone who's a huge fan of Skyward Sword, again, spoilers if you haven't beat the game, I don't know why you're still here.
Hopefully not. We just talked about beating Ganon.
For real. But anyway, there's a side quest that you do with the goddess statues, the Spring of Power, Spring of Courage, Spring of Wisdom. And if you do those quests, you go back, it repairs like the giant goddess statue at the Forgotten Temple. And then when you go back there, the rewards you get is actually the goddess sword from Skyward Sword. I thought that was so cool to actually get. And I was like, I wonder what we're going to get. Maybe it's a heart container or something, because they were goddess statues. I was like, maybe you get an extra heart container for beating this. And then lo and behold, it was that Easter egg of a weapon. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so now it's in there, and I don't use it unless I absolutely have to, because I don't know if you can get it again if it breaks.
Yeah, that's the one thing. The breaking is back in this game, which is a bit unfortunate, but I think a fuse kind of helps with that in a way.
Yes.
But yeah, I do wish that there were a couple weapons, like those really special ones. I wish that those had at least the recharge ability that the Master Sword has, so it's not like you're in a constant fear of never wanting to use it and you just display it in Link's house and leave it alone.
Yes, the durability system is back, but I think it's balanced a little bit better now with fuse, because I know, like, for example, if you fuse like two spears together, if one of them breaks, you still have the other spear with you, and you can still use it. And at least I think that, yeah, that's
right.
usually what happens. And so I think it's balanced a bit better this time around. But I do agree with you. It for some people it might still be kind of a pain. Yeah. The durability system never really bothered me in Breath of the Wild, so I knew it wasn't really going to bother me much here. But I did like the fact that fuse makes it better.
Yeah,
and it allows you to carry more weapons, right, in a way, because you're able to fuse two together.
Right.
So, also, since we're going to talk about things that are back and probably very annoying, Koroks have made a return in this game. Why did they do this and make even more of them compared to Breath of the Wild? I hear there's 1,000 in this one.
Oh my God.
I hear there's 1,000 in this one, and the reward does not change. Like, apparently the reward is the exact same. Oh my God. The reward does not change. It's the exact same. Honestly, I feel like this is Nintendo's way of saying, if you did this, get a life.
Yeah. Really.
Oh,
I mean, the Koroks here were so much more fun, though, than they were in Breath of the Wild, because it's not like you're just randomly stumbling upon them. They still have those, and they're still cool. But then there's the backpack Koroks, which are hysterical. And I loved all the like YouTube content and the TikToks and the shorts about like launching a Korok to the moon and sending him to his death. And like when they hang them on a crucifix, I think it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Gosh. I was like, this is terrible. I've also seen, I didn't know you could do this, but I saw this on, I don't know if you've seen it, Josie, but there was somebody who got like a skeleton bokoblin head where Link was carrying it, and they walked it all the way to Korok Forest, and you can scare the Koroks, and they start running like crazy, and it is the funniest thing ever. And
holy cow!
Yes, I had no idea you could do that, but somebody did that just to see what would happen if like they took like a bokoblin head and like walked it all the way to Korok Forest where all the Koroks are. Yeah, they run crazy and they scream like, no!
Oh my God!
Yeah, I was like, again,
traumatize the Koroks.
For real. Yeah. And then, yes, I will admit, yes, I fell on the bandwagon of launching a Korok into
so
Senate.
Fun.
It's great.
So fun. So fun. You got to do it at least once.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Korok NASA space program is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so cool with Tears of the Kingdom is that that's not really a side quest, but it kind of is. That's like a big part of the game. It's like, you're not really going to get necessarily like rewarded. It's not built into the game, but you can do all this crazy stuff with the Koroks, and it's super funny, and you can spend hours and hours building things with Ultra Hand, and there's so many different aspects to this game that all go into creating this absolute like gigantic experience.
Yeah. So you asked me what my favorite side quest was. What was yours? What was your favorite side quest?
I really liked the whole Yiga clan thing. Like when the first time you get down in there and you infiltrate them and you get the like Yiga armor, it's so cool. I loved how the armor looked, and I just loved the lore of it. It was really fun. was really fun to
Yeah, when
experience.
I remember getting down there and finding out that Master Koga was still alive. I was like, no way you're still here. And I'm going to have to deal with you not once, not twice, but I think 3 times in this game you fight that guy. But it's so much fun each time because he has like a new like vehicle that he builds each time. So the fight is different each and every time, which props to Nintendo. Also, I know we'll talk about bosses in a second, but the boss fights this time around
amazing.
Were so much better than what we got in Breath of the Wild.
They're so creative.
So, yeah.
I guess we can go directly into that if you'd like. Like the constructs, holy cow, that was so fun. The way you can utilize Ultra Hand and just like pick them away and then find that one. And the reward you get when you fuse their whatever it is that they drop is so cool. It's like such a powerful weapon.
Yes, and even more so because I think, I don't know if you guys know, but like you can go into the depths and have like a rematch with the bosses that you fought in the dungeons, which we'll get to dungeons in a second. But like,
I did not know that. That is crazy.
Yeah, you can rematch the bosses. That they're a bit harder, but whenever they die, whenever you beat them, they actually drop something that you can fuse to a weapon, and it does like insane amounts of damage.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like I believe. Like that ice beast that you fight in the Wind Temple, when you beat it in the depths, it drops like one of its like ice horns or whatever, and you can fuse it to a weapon, and it does like
holy
50
cow.
plus 50 plus damage.
Cow.
Yeah, it's insane. So, but bosses in this game were amazing, and I do agree with you that also those giant construct fights in the sky. And even some in the depths too. There's some in the depths, and there's also, I don't know if you did like those sky mazes that were found.
Yeah,
in the sky.
I did a couple.
Yeah, you do those, and you go, and it unlocks a fight with them as well. And every time I encountered one of those, I enjoyed fighting it. It was so much fun.
I think that was my favorite boss in the entire game, just because I thought it was so creative, and they're like changing around, they're changing forms. There's different spots where you have to hit it where it's weak, and it's like such a weird boss fight that you never expect to have in a Zelda game because it doesn't really feel very Zelda. It's not like you're fighting a Bokoblin or Ganon or whatever, but it's so creative and so fun, and it's executed perfectly because it is made by the Zelda team. It's so fun.
Right.
And then all those temple bosses were amazing. I mean, they were so creative, and the way you utilized all the different abilities and everything was super, super fun.
Yeah, before we keep going into like bosses territory, let's back up a little bit. Dungeons. What did you think of the dungeon? What did you think of the dungeons this time around?
I loved them. I thought they were so good, but I wasn't even a criticizer of the Divine Beast. Like, I didn't mind the Divine Beast, but these were really, really, really cool. The lead up to them, it really feels like that part sort of went back to the traditional Zelda formula in a way, because you have to talk to the NPC to talk to the other NPC to activate the whole thing, and I actually ended up really, really enjoying that because there's a balance of both of that and the full open world where you can kind of do and go wherever you want. But I thought they were creative and super fun, and I loved them. Oh,
yeah. And one of the things that I really enjoyed this, and by the way, before I continue, like the Divine Beasts, again, I was never really, I really didn't have a problem with the Divine Beasts other than the fact that they were very short, each and every one of them, once you figured out what you were doing. So I was hoping that that these new dungeons, whatever they ended up were going to be,
there a fuse kind of helps with that in a way.
Yes.
But yeah, I do wish that there were a couple weapons like those really special ones. I wish that those had at least the recharge ability that the Master Sword has, so it's not like you're in a constant fear of never wanting to use it and you just display it in Link's house and leave it alone.
Were a bit longer, and they kind of were a merging between the traditional style Zelda dungeons and the Divine Beasts in a way, because I had a feeling they were probably going to do that, because a lot of people, Breath of the Wild was their first Zelda game. So those types of dungeons are all they know. They don't know, like, go get a boss key and go get small keys and a compass and all that stuff. So when we go through, like, the Fire Temple and Lightning Temple was my favorite of the 4.
Yeah, that one was insane.
Oh, that one was amazing. But, like, they felt more environmentally based, in my opinion. Like, they didn't all look the same. That's one thing I really enjoyed. They didn't all look like a mechanical beast.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like you go through Gerudo Desert, you're gonna do a sand temple. When you go to Death Mountain, you're gonna do a fire temple. Like I was just really appreciative that they brought that kind of level of just, diversity back in the dungeons. Like each dungeon was different. Except the water temple. Was not really a fan of the water temple. It's kind of my least favorite. But,
yeah, I mean the water sage is also kind of useless, but we'll get into that later as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get into these new abilities. But yeah, I think probably it's a tie between the lightning temple and the fire temple as my favorite dungeon. Both of those were so good. I've heard a lot of people say they didn't like the fire temple or they cheesed it. Or I don't know how they did that.
Oh, I completely cheesed it. I completely. I did not do that right at all.
Yeah, I had so much fun with both of those though, because it just both of those felt very like if you were trying to do it the way, because I'm that person. I want to do it the way Nintendo designed it.
Yeah.
But if you want to cheese it, you can cheese it. Do it by all means, do it. But those to me felt like the most like those harken back to the traditional Zelda dungeons that I grew up playing, like with Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. All those games, those colossal sized temples felt like traditional Zelda to me again, and it was really cool.
Right, and I loved how they kind of like married that old style with this new style, where they didn't make it tedious, where you're finding keys and you're finding all these random collectibles that are very specific to unlock a very specific area in the very specific like thing. It's all still very like Breath of the Wild, do it however you want. You can cheese it, you can not cheese it, but they brought in all those amazing traditional elements to hopefully get that audience back into it, and I hope it worked. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but I was never super picky in the first place.
Right, I never was either. But I was hoping that maybe all I was hoping was that this game would just bring us colossal sized temples again in some way, shape, or form. I didn't know how they were going to do it as long as we had like colossal temples again, and we got that.
Right.
And we got that in spades, and so I was just really happy about that.
Right.
All the way.
I loved the wind temple, actually, which I think was probably the easiest one, but I started with that one. I loved the build up and the way you get all the way up to it with the sky islands and everything. And then the boss fight I thought was super fun. It was like diving through the thing, breaking the ice. I thought it was super, super cool. And plus, I think you arguably get the best sage from that temple. Tulin's kind of a beast.
Tulin is the best sage in this game, hands down, whenever you're gliding and you need that extra push.
Yeah.
But I agree. Also, the boss fight for that one was so cool. By the way, I remember you and I were talking about this in our discussion for the final trailer, how I talked about how I noticed about the sky combat. Getting to do sky combat whenever you're fighting that thing was so satisfying.
Yeah.
I was like, this is insane. And I was just blown away. And as someone who has played a bunch of other Zelda games, like the return of Goma as a boss fight in the Fire Temple, that was so cool to see. I was like, they brought some of these classic Zelda bosses back too. It really felt like they were trying to satisfy new Zelda fans and Zelda fans who have been fans of the series for years, and by giving them new gameplay while also giving us some of these little nuggets of Easter eggs with old bosses, and even it's just so many cool things all around in this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. We sort of touched on it, but let's just talk about those sage abilities. I thought it was sort of a step down from Breath of the Wild. This is the only one that I thought was sort of better in Breath of the Wild, because I didn't like how you had to run up to them, press A, talk to them, activate the ability, and then you could still deactivate the ability, or you could press Tulin when your stuff is on the edge and he blows it right off, there were parts of that were a little crazy sometimes.
I would have to agree with that. I didn't like the fact that they were constantly, you had to walk up to them to get them to do, and it really didn't bother me all that much. The only thing that really bothered me is if I didn't need them, I would constantly have to pause the menu,
right?
Turn them off, turn the menu back off. Okay, I need you again. Pause the menu, bring them back.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really got on my nerves. But I agree. Tulin is the best of all of them.
Definitely.
That final stage though, Minoru with that robot, I didn't use it as much as I thought I would. Honestly, in the overworld, I thought I would use it a lot. Didn't use it a whole lot.
It's kind of slow. That's what I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
It was a little slow to move around and maneuver, and
It's also
so
what made that. It's also what made that boss fight in the Spirit Temple so difficult.
Yeah.
It moves
it was
so
not
slow.
moving out of the way.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I think,
But
like, I really like all of them. I liked their stories. I liked their temples. But at the end of the day, I didn't love their abilities, aside from Tulin, just because if you think about the abilities from Breath of the Wild, Mipha's Grace, how can you beat that? You just get revived. The Goron Shield, how can you beat that? You have 3 hits, and you're completely protected. And then you have,
yeah,
I think, is it Sidon or is it Sidon?
Sidon.
Sidon. So Sidon, his thing, it's sort of like that, but it's crappy because, like, if you get hit one time, it's out. But if you attack, it's out. So, as a whole, those were the only sort of, I guess, complaints I have with the game is that I wasn't the biggest fan of all the sages, and I was a huge fan of those abilities from Breath of the Wild. But Tulin is definitely better than, what was his name from the first one?
Rivali.
Rivali's Gale. I like Tulin's ability. I ended up liking Tulin's ability a bit more than Rivali's Gale at the end, because you could sort of make your own Rivali's Gale in this game.
This is going to be a controversial opinion, but I'm actually kind of glad that they took away Daruk's protection in this game. I know in Breath of the Wild, if you didn't want to play with it, you just turn it off, you know?
Right.
But I'm kind of glad that they took it away completely in this game, because to me, I felt way too OP in Breath of the Wild with Daruk's protection. Like, you could just walk through, like, a bunch of Lynels come at you, and, like, you just not a scratch. For me, it just kind of took away some of the challenge that Breath of the Wild offered. And so, which this game had a whole lot, like, it raises the challenge bar to a new level in this game, big time.
Yes.
No doubt.
I can see that it could be a little overpowered, but I love that feeling. I'm not like you're the guy who does the 3-heart challenges of these games. I, in my wildest dreams, could never imagine doing something like that. I would get so unbelievably frustrated. You know, I like that feeling of being ridiculously overpowered. But for the challenge, you know, I can see it.
That's fair. I do. Every now and again, I like a little God mode myself. So, so I've actually seen. We'll talk about kind of like the story and that final Ganon fight a little bit more in a minute. But I have seen people who have like gone in with like they have like that dish that's cooked that triples your attack power, and you get those bones off of the Gyptos, and they fused them with a Lionel bow, and they had like they had like a rocket to their shield, and they went up and they flurry bombed Ganondorf with all those arrows, and literally his health bar went.
Oh my god!
Went kaput in literally 30 seconds. I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. But yeah, you can do that.
That is insane. The way people conquered this game in so many different ways was just crazy. Absolutely bonkers. Was something that kind of goes along with how people are super individual and crazy with this game is shrines. What did you think about the shrines in this game? I adored them. I
thought they were much better this time around. Yeah. Finding them was really cool too. How some of them were in those secret caves, which also, that's another thing we haven't talked about. The cave system in this game is massive.
Crazy.
There's so many caves to find, so many things, and some of them lead to a shrine, and some of them, like some of the shrines are really deep in these caves. You go in, and it says there's a shrine that's down below, like, okay, I'm close to it. Where is it? I don't understand. And then you finally find it. I was like, oh, that's why it was so far away, because it was so far down in the cave.
Yeah.
But yes, I thought the caves this time were so much fun, and even the shrines, like those quests where you get those green crystals, and you have to guide them back. Those were fun too. And those, I guess these are also the combat shrines where you go in and you like all of your clothing and weapons are stripped from you, and you have to fight those. Yeah, those were a lot of fun. And I actually went, I don't know if you found this one, but there's one where you have to fight all those in the dark. Like you have nothing on, and and it's like it's pitch black, and you have to fight them all. It's insane.
That is crazy. Yeah, my favorite shrine out of all of them, I had this one, and you go in and it's a combat shrine where you're stripped of all your stuff, but there's water everywhere. And the constructs cannot survive in water. So what I did is I just pulled the platforms from all of them with Ultra Hand, let them go down, and then there was like the big boss one, and there was a bomb, like TNT at the top. So I chucked the TNT at it to make it fly into the water, flew into the water, and I was on my way. It was the coolest thing. And I was like so excited that I could just do it by basically just drowning him. It was a good time.
For real. And that just goes, again, it goes good plays with what they've been saying. Play this game how you want to.
Exactly.
You want to drown constructs, drown the constructs.
Drown the constructs. And that's coming from a lifeguard, so it's all fine. It's good to go.
Moving on just really swiftly, what did you like a lot about the story? Like in regards to like the story in this game?
I just loved the way it was told. I loved the way it was told. I thought the tears were amazing. It was such a cool thing to get, and you could get it in any order you wanted. So it was weird because I would get these ones of Ganon like grimacing and crazy smile Ganon, and then in the next one, Zelda's like a puppet, and then it's all just crazy, and it gets so bizarre. And I think it was super fun, and I think it was super cinematic, and I just loved how it was told, how it was presented. I loved Matthew Mercer as Ganondorf. I thought that was amazing. That was such a good choice. Yeah. So how about you?
Yes. Yeah, I think one of my favorite story segments, aside from those memories this time I thought were much better than Breath of the Wild. The way the story was just told, like it was just like it felt like the story felt much deeper this time than Breath of the Wild did, because you had like, yes, there's a character that gets stabbed in the back in this game. I'm just like, okay, I was not expecting that. Like, that was that. Yeah, and so like they don't shy away from stuff like that. One of the things that I really enjoyed though is whenever you storm Hyrule Castle again for the second time, in this game. And you see, like, it's revealed that, if you haven't figured out already, that the Zelda that you're tracking throughout the game is a puppet. It's not real.
That was crazy.
And then when he appears, he's like, this will be the last thing you ever see. And it shows him, and then the sages come in, and it's like an Avengers Assemble moment, really. It really. And then you see that, okay, this is the part, as someone who is a huge fan of, like, Twilight Princess, when it showed Ganondorf riding his horse again, his demon horse again.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I lost my mind. We'll kind of talk about some of the things that I thought that they could have done better. I was really hoping we'd get a Ganondorf fight on horseback. I was really hoping that would happen.
Yeah,
but that didn't happen. But when I saw that, I was like, no way they actually did that. They're gonna make Twilight Princess fans happy with that shot. That was just, and it shows him like summoning his army and everything. I'm like, if we don't get another Hyrule Warriors game during this time period, I don't know what Nintendo's doing. Like, they need to do that now.
It was so, that last whole like segment of that fight was amazing, because then Ganon's like, oh, you're gonna beat me in Ganondorf form? Great, I'm gonna turn into a dragon. And you're like, what the hell? What is happening? A dragon? And you fight a whole dragon, and it gets crazy. I thought it was amazing. I thought the story between Link and Zelda was also told really like pretty. It was just kind of beautiful. It was a great one with that. But
yeah. Also, I gotta say that they actually went there. Zelda turns into a dragon in this game.
Crazy.
And that whole and when she comes flying in to help you during that final segment with Ganondorf, oh my goodness. And it was just, I have so many emotions. I was like, this has got to be one of the best endings for me, honestly, this is probably the best ending I've ever seen in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Period. And I've played them all. So, So
I thought it was fantastic, and it was just like the Ganon fight was really fun. It was challenging, and then to get rewarded with this crazy story all coming together, and it was just fantastic.
When you enter that throne room and he gets his power back, probably one of the best Ganondorf entrances I've ever seen in a game. Yeah. Like when he starts out as a mummy formed, and then he comes back as his regular Demon King form. And then after you do phase 1, his life gauge goes almost off the screen. I about lost my head when I saw that. I was like, okay, now I got like 5 hearts, and I don't have any gloom protection things to get my hearts back. I'm gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets crazy. It's super tense. But kind of mixing it up a little bit, I sort of touched on what my least favorite part of the game was, which is sort of like the sages. I didn't love them quite as much. But what would you say your least favorite part of the game was?
Okay, this is me being really nitpicky, okay? Because people are going to be like, it's fine, whatever.
Don't take it serious, commenters, please.
For real. So in all of the trailers leading up to the game's release, even the very first teaser that we got at E3 2019, it showed Link with this new Hylian cape with the Master Sword, and I thought it was the coolest look ever. I'm like, okay, when I get the Champion's Tunic and I get that hood, I want that look. I just think, especially when I go to face Ganondorf, I want that look. To get that look, you have to do not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 side quests to do this like mayor election for this like fashion person in Hateno. And finally, when you do that, you can go to her and she's like, yeah, I'll bring your hood down.
Insane.
Like, all of that for just for that thing that you've used in all Nintendo.
All the marketing.
You use that in all the marketing. Like, I wanted that look, and okay, 4 side quests to go through, which honestly, it doesn't sound like a lot. It's just, I was like, why lock it behind a side quest? You could have just put that as like a feature for like a clothing feature. Whenever you get something like, yeah, I want to wear the hood down.
Right.
Don't lock it behind a side quest. It made no sense.
Yeah.
Absolute no sense.
Yeah, the tedious side quests weren't for me, so I didn't even get that far with it. But I thought it was amazing just as a whole. You can play this game however you want. You can take 25 hours to complete it and have a great time. You can take 300 hours to complete it and have a great time. And regardless, it's super, super fun. It's just a joy to play from start to finish. But, yeah.
Yeah, and I could talk about this game all night.
Yeah, forever.
Because it's so big.
So big. There's everything to talk about. It's overwhelmed. That's why my review. I don't know what I'm going to do, where I'm going to start, what's going to happen, but stay tuned, everybody. Nintendo Memories, oh my god, I'm going the wrong way. Where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Nintendo Memories, just capital N, capital M. And my YouTube channel should be the first thing you see. And I do all kinds of content regarding Zelda and Mario. I'm gonna start doing some Metroid stuff because I've missed Metroid because now that Zelda's out, my other favorite series of all time is Metroid, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zelda, Metroid, anything regarding Nintendo, because Nintendo's number 1 in my book, always will be. But yeah, so yeah, that's where you can find me. And thank you, Josie, so much for having me on. This has just been awesome to get to discuss this again with you.
Yeah.
And now the cool thing is you can go explore and do whatever side stuff you want to do now that the story's out of the way. Because I was that person who, as soon as I got into the story, I couldn't stop.
You got to go all the way through. No, once I started getting the tears, I was like, well, just have to go beat the game now because. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but thank you everybody for watching. Remember to subscribe, and Nintendo Memories channel will be linked down in the description below, alongside the Spawncast Patreon. Shameless plug, go subscribe to that. And I will see you guys all in this video. Check out the video, it's a good time. Thank you so much. Vibes, goodbye. Alright, let me end the recording.